right, it's now 2 minutes after 7. This is Morning Express, and welcome back. In case you're joining us now, welcome aboard. And with me in studio, we have Senator Irungu Kangata, Michael Agwanda, and Ambrose Weda to look at matters Nairobi. Now, the question that we're asking this morning is, what is the number one problem that you're facing as a resident of Nairobi? Many of us will remember as the campaigns went on, one of the, well, it was the Nairobi governorship was very heavily contended. And we do remember that Michael Mbuvi Sonko came in and gave a promise that within 100 days, certain things would be sorted out. However, Nairobi has had many complaints and would like to hear from you. Let me just read some of the comments that have come through. And we have Jimmy Gakio who says, leadership. If Nairobi gets a transformational and bureaucratic leader in security, the rest will be history. What we currently have are political leaders, and so many other problems befell us. All right, we have Zachary Tourist who says that Nairobi is one hell of a town. It should be pulled down as the capital and title given to Thika or Machakos. Wow, quite drastic measures there recommended. Alvin Almani says that traffic everywhere, congestion in the city. We have Matara who says jam when going for interviews, power blackouts, lack of better housing, lack of treated water, and insecurity. Gentlemen, Nairobi seems to be a city that has many issues, yet it is one that has very huge revenue in terms of collection. I mean, looking at this probe, assuming that maybe there's any truth in it, that a new probe linking 8 billion lost in theft. We also had an issue just not too long ago on Friday. On the dailies, we had the collections for City Hall. There was, I think, 7.8 billion that was questionable. Let me start with you, Mr. Weda.
Yes.
What bedevils Nairobi? The collections are there, but basic amenities like water, we would expect in this day and age, we're in 2018 for crying out loud,
yes,
water would be running in our taps. It doesn't.
Yes. I think what bedevils Nairobi are the Nairobi voters. That's the biggest problem we have.
The voters?
Yes. What they want is not what they consider when they vote. They want water, they want clean city, they want security, they want order. All these things they want. But when they choose people to do them, then they don't consider ability. They consider whether you're a member of my party, you're a member of my tribe, you're able to give me some little money, you are able to make me happy. That's where the problem is. If they want certain fix, if you have malaria, and then you go to a musician to sing for you, then you have yourself to blame. But if you walk to a doctor and say, laboratory test, malaria, medicine, it gets fixed.
So in short, what you're saying is that the leadership we have right now is not right.
It's not right because we have put them there, and we have put them there on the wrong consideration. The day we want Nairobi to run, we will be looking and saying, we want somebody who can run this. And somebody who can run this is not this one or this one or this. We didn't vote Honorable Michael Mbuvi Sonko to come and change Nairobi. We voted him because first he was a member of Jubilee Party. Secondly, he has a Sonko rescue team. Thirdly, he could give us goodies. Fourthly, all those things. But management ability,
lacking.
Vision, knowledge, experience, that was not there. Therefore, as we complain, because complaining is part of our vocation, let us complain and yap around. But the day we want things to change, we will elect the right people into the right places.
Senator, do you agree that maybe the problem with Nairobi is purely leadership?
Yes, yes and no. One, the problems that we have are quite historical. If you talk about the issues concerning the debt level, our county government is quite heavily indebted. So meaning, even if you are to put an NGO into that office, he has to come up with mechanisms of how that person is going first to pay those debts. So there's a historical aspect to it. But yes, to the extent there's a lot of missing strategies, there's a lot of lack of imagination. Even when you look at the areas that a leader ought to focus on, I would imagine when it comes to leadership, you cannot accomplish everything. If I were a governor of Nairobi, for instance, out of the so many problems that bedevil Nairobi, I would just pick either one or two then I leave out the rest. But those two, I do it into perfection so that everyone sees that I'm doing something. So let's say, for instance, the issue concerning public transport. You know, in Nairobi, we don't have any proper public transport intervention. Probably when you go to other cities, including, by the way, Dar es Salaam, they have a fairly visible and good and properly run public transport system. So one can consider, if you're a governor of Nairobi, introducing, let's say, some trams, some intra-city trains, for instance. I know that can be quite expensive, but one can channel each and every coin into that project over 5 years. People will see at least you have solved one of so many problems that we have. So I agree, there's an element of lack of imagination to the kind of people that
and that's down to leadership.
Yes, I agree to that extent.
Okay. Michael Agwanda, leadership in question here, and also bearing in mind the fact that we also don't have a deputy governor in Nairobi, which seems to have been, put in the back burner. Is it because possibly there was no responsibility clearly defined for a deputy governor such that we can actually do without one?
On the issue of deputy governor, I think we saw what happened in Nyeri. It was pretty fast, and they have a deputy governor now. That is a case in point. I think the one in Nairobi, the governor is still sitting pretty, and is just buying his time. He doesn't see any hurry. Because the law does not force him on specific time frame under which the deputy governor must be in place, is not bound by any pressure to put a deputy governor there. In regards to the failures of the city of Nairobi, I think there are two things: institutional failure as well as administrative failures. I will say this: if you voted for Mike Mbuvi, then you should not complain that you're not getting services in this county.
I disagree.
Why do I say that?
You can't say that.
Hold on, you'll have your time. If you did, then you have no reason to complain, because this gentleman has not just come from the Bundis. He was a senator of Nairobi County. And if he did certain things that made you so happy for you to vote for him as a governor, then you knew that he will meet your needs. And since he's not meeting your need, that is where your level of expectation should stop. In other words, if he's not meeting my need, I should be fine with him. But if you never voted for him, then you need to ask questions. Because when they were sitting and standing and being interviewed, I remember very clearly, there were issues in regards to administrative experience or management experience. And we actually knew very well that when it comes to a position of a governor, you need somebody with a track record of administration. That Mike Mbuvi did not have. He has political experience, but not administrative experience. Why did then people decide to vote for him? Because he was coming with a technocrat behind him. But that technocrat did not take too long, because he realized it was more of political than pure administration. In fact, as soon as he got into that office, he realized he could not sit there any longer. I thank him for thinking very quickly and saying, I can make a difference here. Because the mentality here is about politics and political expediency. It's about political vision. It's about serving your masters, regardless of whether you do anything
or not.
And that is what is bedeviling our city, and that's why we cannot meet the standard. When you look at the tankers, clean water tankers, they've doubled in this city. Why? Why? And yet Nairobi County is supposed to give us money. If anything, they're supposed to cash on that water they're selling to the residents. But they've decided to let it go so that the cartels will be able to benefit from it, and not really the people.
Senator, why do you disagree that residents of Nairobi should not complain? Or rather, according to
you see, the reason is obvious, that I can vote for you today with certain expectation, then tomorrow I see you're not delivering, and then I become dissatisfied and therefore entitled to complain. The fact that you elect somebody does not vitiate your right to complain or to raise an issue. So to that extent, I disagree with you. You can be a good person today, then tomorrow you are not. I think there's no doubt that there were quite valid reasons as to why Nairobians supported him. One, he tended to rhyme with the poor people. You see, you must also understand Nairobi. Vast majority of Nairobians are poor people. They are not the so-called elite, I don't know, educated, I don't know what. To me, that's usually is a mirage. You rise or fall in the slums in this country, in this city. When you get support in Kibera, in Mathare, in Korogocho, that is where vast majority.
Numbers.
Yes. So therefore, to that extent that these people who view themselves as technocrats, I don't know, hey, you are a certain lawyer, I don't know, you are a certain, they really resonate with Nairobians. No wonder, by the way, look at out of the 17 members of parliament in Nairobi, you'll see vast majority of them are former councillors and MCAs. So therefore, that explains something. It tells you that Nairobians, they still want a person who resonates with the common mwananchi. So therefore, you may be very educated. So if you don't resonate with the common man, and for a good reason, to me, that makes a lot of sense, you'll be thrown out. So I would urge the so-called saviors of Nairobi, before you think of vying to become a governor of Nairobi, the first thing you need to do, know how to connect with the common man. And that, to me, is a good thing. Be that as it may, that does not excuse the current governor from being scrutinized. The fact that he's able to resonate with the common mwananchi does not mean that then Nairobians are entitled to services of low caliber. I think from where I see it, it is true. People want better services. Nairobi generates about almost 55 or 60 GDP of this country. Vast. When you talk of a population of about 4 or 5 million, it means almost, is it 10 or about 15% of Kenyans are living in Nairobi. So to that extent, I agree, it requires a lot of imagination. It requires a lot of political capabilities, or even economic management and other capabilities for you to competently manage and meet expectations.
All right. Ambrose Weda, as you come in with your comments,
yes.
you mentioned that the problem for Nairobi is the Nairobi voter who voted in Michael Mbuvi Sonko or voted in the current leadership that we have. But the question is, does that mean then that for the next 5 years, we should just lay low, play dead, allow things to happen as they are? Because basically that's what we have. That's our lot.
In fact, I thank the Senate because he has narrated how to win a seat in Nairobi and how they elect former councillors and you must resonate with them and so on and so forth.
Which is politics.
Not just politics. Whatever it is, you'll realize that Honorable Mike Mbuvi Sonko has not changed. He's the same fellow. The way he presented himself to the electorates, he has not betrayed the picture he gave. He promised the electorates that he will turn Uhuru Park into a parking lot. He didn't pretend that he'll make it into an international world park where people would come and tour. And so he said, when I go in, this is a parking lot. When I go in, hawkers will be allowed into the CBD. Why are they being prevented? He said all these things that we said, hallelujah, Bana Sonko, we need you. So he is there. We do not expect him to import some other ideas from mass. He is being himself. So let us sit and wait. Occasionally, if he goes to Kikomba and they clean kidogo kidogo, we thank God. If he brings the hawkers into the city, the next day he drives them out, we clap for him. Because that is the level of
leadership. So you're saying for the next 5 years we should accept and agree that that's basically what we should do.
Let's not pollute the atmosphere with a lot of noise when we know there'll be no answers. Let's pray quietly and let's learn our lessons and let's hope when the next time comes, we will consider that we want this city to look at this and then we look at candidates, is he able? But if we go back into the whole considerations, you must be this, you must be that, then let's not pollute the atmosphere every morning. Oh, Mbuvi Sonko, oh, do this. He did not promise us to do that. President Uhuru and the Deputy President promised us certain things, including the railway going to Kisumu. So when I talk, I say, Your Excellency, our railway to Kisumu and Busia, where is it? Nairobi residents should be demanding, when they talk about traffic, they should be asking Mike Mbuvi Sonko, why have you not opened up Uhuru Park as a parking lot? because you had
That's
promised
what he
that.
promised.
These are the things he said on TV in rallies, and we clapped. Now we are expecting him to turn Nairobi into a Singapore. Surely we are being very hypocritical.
Michael Agwanda, your thoughts on that? Are we being hypocritical by expecting basic necessities? I mean, water, just plain water. Traffic has become an issue. Nowadays, you can sit in traffic for 2 hours in the city, and it is okay. Or rather, we have made it okay.
It takes me 1 hour. Let me tell you, it takes me about 6-7 minutes from town every morning when I come here. And then it takes me 1 hour to go back to town as soon as the traffic kicks in, if you're lucky. And that's what we go through every morning when we leave this place. But I can tell you that I don't expect much, and I totally agree with Weda, that we might be expecting so much from Honorable Mike Mbuvi. There was a committee was put in place, actually, headed by Minister Balala. A committee that was supposed to work with the governor's team and then, see on how to intervene on some of these issues in cleaner, perhaps decongesting Nairobi and many other things that they thought they would be able to do this. It was from central government as well as the county government. Remember, that can only happen by the goodwill of the governor. There's nothing in law that forces him to work with these people. If he doesn't work with these people, he can suspend the meetings and he actually co-chair it. He can say, I'm not available, and there's nothing they can do because it's not anchored in law. It's by the goodwill of him. The only person that can help us in Nairobi, if the president put his foot down. Because to me, the only person that Mike Mbuvi is going to listen to and perhaps implement the things he wants done in this country, in this county, as soon and as fast as possible is the president. The president must come in and befriend Mike Mbuvi Sonko again and tell him, my brother, I know we've had some issues, even in public forum.
So we are now at the mercy of the president, basically, unless...
At the mercy of the president.
And Mike Mbuvi Sonko.
And if that intervention is not done as soon as possible, and few things highlighted, whether it is traffic, whether it is water, and whether it's insecurity in this country, if those things are not handled with heavy-handedness, then we are going nowhere in Nairobi. And remember, there are many, many other cities coming around. I've had serious discussions with people who are investing in Africa and in East Africa. Majority of them are actually saying, not Kenya for now, not Kenya for now. Because of insecurity, because of the prices of land in Nairobi that is so exorbitant that you wonder whether you're buying a piece of land in heaven that you'll go live in. If a quarter of an acre in Nairobi in some places will sell for 50 million, you're wondering, is that heaven or it is in Nairobi? And then you want an investor to come here and invest in Nairobi.
It's not going to happen.
How? It's not
Senator,
gonna happen.
are we at the mercy of the president to sort out Nairobi, yet we put a governor in place who we expected was going to deliver, although according to Weda, he says what he promised is to make Uhuru Park, a parking lot.
Yes, to a certain extent, when you take into account that Mike Sonko is a member of the Jubilee Party, so meaning President being the patron of the Jubilee Party, he has some leverage over him. Of course, from a legal point of view, no, that city government is separated, distinct from the national government. They have the right to implement whatever policies they want, particularly those that they promise Nairobians. I think what Wakili has just said here presents a certain dilemma, a class dilemma, that on one hand, it appears the kind of policies that were given out by Sonko when he was campaigning, there were policies that were gelling with the underclass. But on the other hand, the upper class or those people who are successful in life, they appear not to be in tandem with some of those policies. So the question then happens, what happens? Personally, I think the best case scenario would be a person who can be able to unite everyone, whether you are rich, whether you are poor, whether you're educated, whether you are uneducated. And from therefore, you craft certain policies, you craft certain strategies that are going to satisfy every person. And I'm sure that is possible. A good example is like a place like Indonesia. The current president, Mr. Widodo, was the mayor, was it a mayor or a governor of the Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia. Again, also in Philippines, the current President Duterte was a mayor of a certain city. So it appears there is a way you can deliver as a governor of a major urban center and gives you a certain springboard for you to spring into national limelight, to become a president. So therefore, I think Sonko has a very good opportunity for him to deliver so that he is able to prove himself to everyone, whether rich or poor. And out of that, then he can enter into major political position. Otherwise,
what advice would you give Sonko, being a leader in Murang'a? You are a senator in Murang'a. What advice would you give him in regards to ensuring that Nairobi, some of these things are dealt with? What are some of the things that you're doing right in Murang'a that you can give him as advice?
One, you need to distinguish. Murang'a is fairly rural. I think 85% is rural. But Nairobi is almost 99% urbanized. So therefore, I think I wouldn't urge him to draw any lesson from our region. I think the best case scenario would be...
No, but when it comes to governance and leadership, I'm sure there's some principles that cut across.
Yes, I agree.
The problems in Murang'a may not be traffic per se, but there are certain leadership governance principles that I'd expect would run across.
Okay, thank you. Number one, I would urge him to do two things. One, to identify one single most important problem that cuts across all classes, everyone, and then proceed to put all his money and effort into that. For instance, transport, public transport. The reason why you find a lot of people using their motor vehicles, private motor vehicles to come to Nairobi City is because public transport has collapsed in this town. And therefore, if he was to pick, for instance, he says, no, I'm going to invest in a modern intra-city public transport system. Either you establish trams, either you establish what we call tubes, and then you ensure it is efficient, it is available to vast majority of Nairobians. You are going to achieve three things. Number one, you will have fewer people coming to the city using their private vehicles because it will be more faster. Number two, you will see a situation where people can see what you have done. You see, that's something that is good for the vicious. You see, one of the problems you may have with his administration, he may be doing something, yes, but people can't see. You see, in politics, also people want to see that way. So therefore, if you were to invest in just one area, and then probably you put your best foot forward there. To me, that can assist.
That can assist.
Yes,
and I want to come to the other gentleman. What is it that you'd say, for instance, in Murang'a you have done? That one thing that people of Murang'a can say, the leadership of Murang'a, they have sorted us out.
For me, I don't have executive powers, but maybe I can only talk of the current governor. Let me first say, for now, we have some issues. But I know what made Murang'a people to re-elect him again. It was only one issue. And I think, however much you may say against him, you have to give credit where it is due, that he was able to revive what is called the milk industry. So we had a situation where the milk prices moved from 17 shillings then to about 30, 35 shillings when he was the governor. Of course, now there are issues people are raising, but when you leave those issues aside, the fact that we saw a revival of that dairy sector, to me that was commendable. And therefore, the lesson Naniwu should draw, that is Mr. Sonko from Murang'a, would be you just come up with just one issue that affects vast majority of Nairobians. When you do that, those people are going to be like your so-called reserve army. Those people are going to benefit from that project. So they'll be the ones who will be selling your names and they will stand strongly behind you, like that example I've given you, the revival of the milk sector in Murang'a.
All right. Ambrose Weda, with your closing comments, advice to Mike Mbuvi Sonko, what is that one thing that he needs to do?
Two things. One, you cannot run Nairobi effectively unless you have full support of the president. So let him review his ngunyuring so that they work together. That's one. Two, he doesn't have to struggle with many things. Let him just go for cleanliness, clean city, They can steal as much as they want, but let it be a clean city. The world over, you go to wherever, what people talk about, the city is clean. I live in Machakos County. One of the things our governor, Mutua, did was clean areas, clean toilets, clean. You don't need miracles to clean. You just need order, arrangement, and then support. Then you clean Nairobi. We will just re-elect him, even if he's demonstrating against his own country. Clean, clean, clean. Clean water, clean city, clean pavements, clean, 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 clean.
All right, Michael Agwanda.
I think Governor Mbuvi needs to know that he can't achieve anything without working hand in hand with members of the assembly. But he also needs to be reminded that you can also work so well with members of assembly that they will never mention anything against you. And that does not equal service delivery. I really think that Mike Mbuvi needs to put his office in order. He needs to have a deputy governor so that if something happens to him today, God forbid, that somebody else will be able to take that position like what we saw elsewhere. Two, he must be able to deliver on two things that he mentioned, that I want to mention: water and traffic grid in this county. If everybody will get water in this county, then we will not have issues of cholera in a number of slums in this town, and in the county. If we can make sure that there is traffic flow, and the only way to do that is to ensure that all the traffic lights are working. Nowadays, I don't know where you live, but today they're working, tomorrow they're not working. And
Well,
what happens?
even when they're working, we still have policemen there. So.
Even when they're working, you still have policemen there. The only way to solve the problem of traffic in this country is to have overpass and underpass. And then we can have direct train that comes from town. I know they're all in plan. They're all, if you go and talk to them about this thing, they'll tell you, oh, this thing is all in plan. But when it will be implemented, nobody knows. Some of it might be implemented when we are long gone. The traffic between airport to town is probably the worst traffic you could ever imagine of, because that is the same road that is actually exiting to Mombasa, where all the goods goes to and where all the goods come from. So if we can have a train that comes from the city to the airport, and then it releases this huge commotion of vehicles going to town, I think will be better. Water to me, traffic.
And your final comments?
Yes, one, I would urge him also to listen to people. You know, you don't have a monopoly of ideas. Like now, you see what I've given you a good example, what made Mongoiria to be re-elected. Like now, currently, I've been telling him, no, do this, Governor. Complete this milk plant in Marago. At times, he takes offense. Whereas, indeed, I'm trying to celebrate his achievement, which has been the revival of milk industry. And if he was to do that, I'm sure his legacy will be cemented in the hearts of people of Murang'a. So again, the same principle applies to Sonko, that when you are told something, don't take it personal. When you are criticized, don't take it personal. You need to take into account those views, and then you crystallize them into policies and ideas, and then you proceed to implement them. It is you who is going to get that glory. It's not the person who is criticizing you.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll have to wind up there because of time. It's 7:30. Senator Irungu Kangata, who's the Deputy Chief Whip in the Senate. We also have Michael Agwanda, governance expert, and Ambrose Weda, who is a lawyer. The question is still running, and we'd like to hear from you. I'll be reading through your comments as we carry on. What is the number one problem that you face as a resident of Nairobi? Quite a number of nuggets there for the governor, Mike Sonko. Hopefully, if he's watching or his people are watching, taking note of some of the complaints that the Nairobi residents have. What is the number one problem that you are facing as a resident of Nairobi? For now, we're going to take a short break, but do stay with us right here on Morning Express.
This is KTN News.